Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hash Rate. My name is Mark Jeffrey. My guest today is Bill Barheit, and we're here to talk about Trump coin. Hello, Bill.
Hey, Mark. Great to see you, man. Crazy times.
Great to see you as well. So 2 nights ago was the crypto ball in D.C. and the inaugural ball. And I saw video of the room, and like it was half of it was our friends. Like I was just I know everybody
Yeah,
here.
it's amazing. Yeah.
So you
Pretty
watched?
cool.
Did you watch that as well? You weren't there, right? Like you were.
I couldn't. I was invited, but I had some personal stuff to deal with, so I couldn't make it. But yeah, I literally knew every attendee. I mean, there wasn't one person in a picture I saw. I'm like, oh, I don't know who that person is. It didn't happen. So I don't know how they managed to do that, but it was kind of like, I mean, I was at Sailor's New Year's Eve party. It was pretty similar.
Yes.
But he had some kind of pre-Bitcoin friends. He has like two lives, right? Like he has like a cutoff date during COVID when his Bitcoin life started, and then every day after. And that's probably the first time the two have met in between, in the middle ever since he's all on. But yeah, it looked like an amazing time, and certainly a lot to celebrate in our world if you've managed to survive the last 3 years. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, to me, it was a really great moment. Like it felt really good after kind of like 3 years of suffering. It's like, the chains have been taken off. I can move freely again. Right. Like that's sort of what it feels like.
Absolutely.
So,
it's crazy.
So yeah. And then, and to be honest, I'm friends with Jason Calacanis, and, obviously the All In Pod has been instrumental in sort of this movement. Getting Trump elected, it definitely had a hand in that. As did crypto, obviously.
Yeah, we've actually been sponsoring the show. We sponsored the end of year party, and we're sponsoring their inauguration live stuff to just kind of help out and get the word out, and just let people know, like, hey, Trump's here partially because you all pushed us into a corner and gave us no choice but to fight, and so we're supporting whoever we can. That's part of the fight now.
Well, I applaud you for that. So thank you. And, I'm obviously a fan of Jason and the show, although it was pretty funny to see Jason, like they were sort of kidding, like he's not here, right? On Twitter for a little while, like we don't know where he is. And then all of a sudden he was in a picture. So he was there the whole time. I think they were making fun of him because he's like he's had Trump derangement syndrome for years and then crypto derangement syndrome, right?
Yeah.
So this was like kryptonite mashed up with, infinity stones or something, right? Like, so it was just everything bad for Jason in one room. That was kind of funny. I have to admit.
He loves it. So, no empathy required. He brings him on himself because he loves it. So it's all good.
Yeah, well, I mean, the All-In Pod is now top of the heap, so he wins either way.
It's unbelievable. What they've done is it's remarkable what they've done. A little kind of let's get together during COVID kind of thing, and look where they are now. So
yeah, absolutely amazing. It's a Beatles-like performance. You need all four of them to make it work.
Exactly. That's well said. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yep.
So, now Sachs, I don't know if Sachs is gone or not. Like, they haven't really been clear about that. He hasn't been on the show, so I don't know. I don't know if they're going to, like, pull a Sammy Hagar and, keep Van Halen rolling, or whether Sachs is going to come back. I don't know.
I think he'll come back. I think it's just temporary since he's basically dealing with all this, kind of transition Trump, 2.0 stuff,
Yeah, if he comes back, it's going to be better than ever, right? Because now he will be on the inside of the beat.
Shackles are off. I mean, he didn't really have shackles before, but he just doesn't give a shit now. I'm sure of it. Yeah. I mean, what did he say? There was a snippet that somebody sent me. Said something like the evil reign of terror has come to an end. I mean, Jesus.
Yes. Yeah, he was very clear about that.
I'm not in the administration, so I would say it, but I guess the shackles are off for good. So.
Yeah, I mean, thank God, right? Okay, so at the crypto ball, or not, I mean, sort of in conjunction with the crypto ball, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Donald Trump launches a meme coin on Solana. Now, I was watching the crypto ball, right? So I'm like watching all my friends and the videos. I'm all excited, and all of a sudden, this pops up in my feed, and I'm like, well, that looks like the account's been hacked. That was literally my first reaction. I was like,
"You're like the 10th person that said that to me. Like this account has to have been hacked."
Yeah, it just didn't look real, right? And then apparently it was posted on his True Social, right, at the same time. So that actually lent credibility because it's like you're probably not going to hack both of those at the same time. And then somebody online did an analysis of sort of the structure of the web page and the DNS setup.
Yeah.
And it concluded that it was very similar to his NFT.
That's right.
They'd done previously. So basically it looked like the same sort of
It was
DNA.
clearly the same people. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So all of a sudden I'm like, well, wait, maybe this is real, right? And off it goes to the races, and it went from sort of zero, well, not quite zero, but close to zero, to last time I looked this morning, $70 billion in valuation.
It's crazy. I mean, so somebody pinged me about an hour from when the post happened, and I always keep a little bit of just play money in my wallet, my Phantom wallet, just to understand what's going on, and mostly to just look at the funny meme stuff and just to kind of keep up. I'm not really somebody that you would go to for advice on what's happening in pop culture. Yeah. But it lets me kind of keep up with what's going on, post Pepe, whatever. And I think I was looking at LLM, which is the large language model, which is the most unpolitically correct thing you've ever seen. It's basically a large woman, so a large model. And I think I had a few K in that, and I was like, all right, F it, I'm just putting it all into Trump. So I literally put all of it into, and this was like, I was dozing off on Friday evening. I forget where I was. It was 3 days ago now, but whatever. So I was dozing off Friday evening. I clicked convert, like swap, whatever it says in the app, and I forgot about it. And then, it wasn't a lot of money. It's like lunch money. And I woke up the next day and I looked at it, and it's like 5x. from when I went to sleep. I said, this can't be right. I must have been high, and I don't even know. I don't get high, but I'm like, what the hell did I do? Right. And I looked at it, I'm like, oh shit. Yeah. It's up 5x from last night. And so it's just it's bizarre. I mean, it really has changed everything. I mean, if you think about it, right? So last year, I was checking yesterday, as of the end of December, the market cap of all meme coins was like over 100 billion.
Yeah.
Okay. And here comes one, which is on track to basically double that in a weekend.
Yes.
Right? I mean, I have no crystal ball, not investment advice, certainly not investment advice in meme coins. Actually, my investment advice is don't invest in meme coins. But that aside, I actually own a little bit of Trump now, which has become a lot more of Trump. I actually wouldn't be surprised if it pumps a lot, with all the inauguration stuff, and then crashes awfully. But what do I know? So it's just amazing. So in other words, like the market cap of all meme coins could easily double by the time the inauguration is done in a weekend.
Absolutely crazy. Yeah. So I didn't get in on it. I watched it and I'm like, oh, okay, it's at 9 million or 9 billion. I'm like, oh, it's probably done. Yeah, that's pretty high. Like, it's not going to go anywhere after that, was sort of my initial impression. And also I don't have a lot of assets in the Solana universe. So I would have had to bridge, do that whole thing. And I was like, nah. So I kind of stayed out of it, which absolutely was the wrong move in retrospect, obviously, but also the World Liberty Digital thing that didn't do anything. And I'm the kind of guy that, like, I look for things early, and I've had a lot of wins in the, finding stuff early, like Tau was one recent one, and I have like conviction in it, and I study it for a little while. Yeah. These things that happen fast, I'm not very good at. So like meme coin stuff, I always call it wrong. So I know my lane and I stay out of it. So anyway, but
when it comes to investing, I consider myself a multi-month swing trader. It's kind of my investing style. I make big bets, concentrated bets. Yes. And, unless something is going really, really south, like I was looking at Aptos, and then the next day after I was about to ape in, the guy resigned, right? So I think he was thrown out, actually. I don't think he resigned. Mo, who I like a lot. And so, I didn't pull the trigger on that. But in general, like I'll make multi-month bets and then rotate if I think that on a risk reward basis, something looks better. And to your point, you can't do that with this stuff. I mean, it's literally like, I don't even know what it's like. It's just funny money. And so, I look at alternative blockchain investments. That's part of what I do. And we run a fund that does that. And to your point, like we write up a thesis on every single one. Yeah. You mentioned one of them, Tau, and it's in our fund, and we know exactly why we're getting in. Yeah. The hardest part is knowing when to sell or when to, when there's something that has a better risk reward. But from a thesis perspective, we know why we're getting it. With this stuff, I mean, obviously with Trump and the mania and 2.0 and like, it's a new day and it's all the hype that I get. Okay. I just don't know how to put a monetary value on that. I certainly wouldn't have put a $65 billion valuation on it after 2 days. Vis-a-vis a meme coin.
Neither would I, but actually, Hoseb, I hope I pronounced that correctly. He basically posted something on Twitter and he said, this feels like a moment where everything changed, right? And he said, there've been a couple of these, like the EOS ICO, where they raised $4 billion, right? That was unprecedented at the time. Seems tiny now with all this stuff going on, right? There've been a few of those moments, and he felt like this was another sort of BC to AD moment where like absolutely everything's different. What do you agree with that? It sounds like you
No, I don't. No, I mean, remember Doge when Elon last cycle, Elon went on Saturday Night Live and was, this is changing everything for crypto. And it, a lot of people got Coinbase accounts and wallets and Abra wallets because, when we had our retail app and all that stuff. And it did bring us a lot of users and a lot of notoriety and all the other wallets and apps that supported, I think XRP was flying high and Doge in particular was really flying high. And that's fine. And that's happening now. I've had people I haven't heard from, friends I talk to all the time, but not on the crypto front, text me this weekend, what do you think of Trump? I haven't heard that in a while, like vis-a-vis Bitcoin or Solana or SWI or anything else. Right. So actually, that's very similar to the last cycle, which gives me pause to think like, OK, this is going to be a few months and then it's going to be back to, the crypto cycle as whatever's going to happen is going to happen, in my opinion. In other words, I think that there's going to be some big L1 winners this cycle. I think Solana, SWI, Bitcoin. I think Ethereum will eventually have its day. Are going to have a fantastic year. That's my intuition based upon everything that I know about macro market cycles, liquidity, et cetera, et cetera. That's going to happen independent of Trump. If anything, this might slow it down because it's a distraction and people retail might be diverting cash here. But when you're talking about a hockey stick, the time frame becomes less important because when you're dealing with exponential part of the hockey stick, 6 months, 9 months, 15 months, it doesn't really matter that much at the end of the day, as long as you basically are, not just chasing your tail and chasing shiny objects and actually have a reasonable thesis where, like I said, you're not just trying to day trade all day long, which is just a recipe to go broke quickly.
Yeah, agree completely with that. Hash Rate is sponsored by Ledger. With the announcement of Ledger Flex and Ledger Stacks, Ledger gives you the best security on the planet for your crypto and identity. Ledger Flex and Stacks drive an e-ink screen with the same secure chip that's in your credit card and passport, except instead of protecting the secrets of banks and governments, Ledger protects your secrets and your private keys. Ledger supports Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and more than 200 other tokens. The secure touchscreen, plus the Ledger Live app, means that whether you're buying your very first Bitcoin or doing your 2000 swap, you can do it securely and easily with your Ledger. And as always, use my link, shop.ledger.com/hashrate in the show notes to get the very best price whenever you buy a Ledger Flex or Stacks. Yeah, so a lot of people are saying, well, Trump is now worth, he's basically like quintupled his net worth, because he owns 80% of, only 20% of the coin is circulating. 80% is sitting in Trump's wallet in his sock drawer, right, at Mar-a-Lago or whatever, however he stores it. And, but there's only, somebody pointed out that there's only 700 million in trading liquidity, right? So, right. So if Trump showed up and tried to cash out, that would
price would fall 99%, immediately, And so I was thinking about it. I think it was Caitlin that posted this, that the one good thing that could come out of this is that, he might be incentivized to eliminate capital gains taxes on all crypto transactions.
Yeah.
Right?
He's
Since
pretty
he's
motivated.
now the largest known holder of crypto in the world. On a market cap basis, which that's unbelievable as well. But if he tried to sell even a penny, like if he sold one Trump coin, the price would fall like this.
Yeah.
So, that's the challenge. I don't know how you deal with that other than just not to. I don't know, because he doesn't need the money anyway. So.
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, that wallet that he has sold. The wallet has made some money, right? Because I think it has sold some initial. I guess the initial 20% that was sold, they do have some money for that that they've made. They've now converted a lot of that into Ethereum. So people have
Ethereum or Solana?
No, Ethereum. So I mean, obviously it's initially in Solana. Then they used the Solana to go buy some Ethereum. Yeah. So that people were just reporting on that this morning, yeah.
Unless so that was kind of like needed. Maybe it's related to World Liberty, and they needed it for that. I don't know, but that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, I get the buying the Solana part, and because they're the reason why Solana has been going up all weekend. I mean, Solana has basically recovered 3 months of losses in 36 hours. It's unbelievable, and so it's 100% due to this, due to Trump. Yeah.
Would you say, I mean, when I was watching sort of my crypto Twitter feed while all this has been going on over the last day and a half, it sounds like there's a lot of angst about this amongst crypto Twitter. And I think the reason why is because a lot of, we were all anticipating Monday when, maybe a Bitcoin reserve will be announced. But we anticipated this moment where all the crypto we've been holding would kind of all go up at the same time. And along comes Trump, like 2 days beforehand with his own coin, and everybody starts selling their crypto to go buy this new thing, right? So the market, it sucked liquidity out of the market at a vast scale I've never seen before.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, okay, so you agree.
Well, look, I don't want to be holier than thou about this, but I have no sympathy for people who basically are here just for price. None. I just don't. I mean, look, I want to make money in crypto. Most of my net worth is in crypto, and I think it's fantastic. To me, it's like the second coming of computing, and it's the ultimate check on government power run amok and all these great things. But that's why I'm here, right? So the fact that I can make money from it at the same time and make a living, it's just amazing. It's a gift to me. But at the same time, and this is the third time I've seen this. The first cycle, there was no altcoins. There was just Bitcoin. Ethereum was just starting. So we didn't have these alt cycles or alt seasons or any of this crap. Right. So this is the third time I've seen it. It's the same thing each time. People have their choices, their bags, whatever you want to call it. And all they care about is their chosen bags. Right. And everything else is a distraction or is bad because it's not affecting number go up for them. And in theory, if that's right, at least for a week or a couple of weeks or maybe a month, who knows, this is affecting everything except for Solana. Right. To the downside, it's affecting everything because it's sucking liquidity out of everything else. And so, I'm guessing if there was no Trump coin, other assets would probably be having a better weekend going into the inauguration. But as I said before, one, get over it. Two, it's not going to matter in the short term. Even in the shortest term, it's not going to matter. My guess is in 30 days, people will be on to the next thing. I could be wrong. But unless they have some plan for this meme coin that I can't figure out, I don't think they do. But my guess is they're flying by the seat of their pants if World Liberty is any indication. So, which is fine. I mean, they can do whatever they want. It's a free country. But yeah, I mean, it's this kind of mental block that people have when it's like, oh, it's alt season, it's time for my bags, and everything else is a distraction. It's not healthy. It's giving people a lot of asset, in my opinion, and it's not healthy at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think Fred Krueger, he's a friend of both of ours, but I talk to him pretty regularly. And when this whole thing dropped, he was very sort of upset, and sort of he was definitely bent about it, right? So he's like, I can't believe Trump dropped this thing.
Really?
That was his initial reaction.
You can't believe that he would do? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no,
of course he would do this. Like, what can't you believe? I mean, give me a break. Of course they would do this.
Well, Fred finally calmed down and was like, you know what? It's the free market, and I like that better than, everything else. And I'll take this world over the Gensler world and the Warren world and the Choke Point 2.0 world any day.
Well, first of all, the guy sells sneakers. He sells watches. He sells steaks. He sells belts. I mean, and again, fine, whatever. It's a free country, capitalist system, whatever you want to sell. Just, as long as you're not breaking any laws, it's all good to me. But therefore, where does the surprise part come in?
You know? Yeah. No, I tend to agree with you on that. So let me read you something David Bailey tweeted, earlier today. He says, "I think most people think it's bad for Bitcoin, good for Trump," and he's talking about the Trump coin. "I have the opposite instinct, that it's good for Bitcoin but bad for Trump. In the scheme of things, it's just noise, but people are fairly emotional about it right now." So with that in sort of mind, what do you think? Was this a good idea for Trump to do, or did this sort of soil, his intention of a new financial system with something ticky-tacky and cheesy?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I'm pretty indifferent. I don't think it changes things in the midterm. I really don't. I know, maybe I'm being naive, but I don't think it does. Look, my personal beta for measuring my financial life now is Bitcoin, right? Because I think that's the only pristine asset that we have now, right? Especially at the rate that the dollar is being devalued and the lies they're telling us around that. So most people don't get that, in my opinion. So
yeah, I do want to talk about that a little bit in the show, but please continue.
Yeah, but most people don't understand that at all. So it's not like they're changing their mind. Oh, my personal beta was Bitcoin, but now it's going to be Trump coin. No, right?
Yeah.
Most people's personal beta is dollars, and it's still going to be dollars tomorrow, and they're going to feel good about themselves if they put in 1,000 and came out with 10, right? So but again, the system is breaking. Right, the macro is breaking. We can see what's happening with treasury rates, and it's real. It's happening now, and the public is not going to understand why it's happened. Just why we didn't really understand why we had the Occupy Wall Street thing, right? A few years ago, people didn't really understand what was going on. They just knew that something was wrong. Like, why is this happening to us and not them, right? Well, it's going to become very acute now. Anyway, so does Trump coin affect that at all? In my opinion, no, it doesn't. And my guess is it'll be forgotten in a month. But it is good for. I do agree with David's sentiments, right? And his broader sentiment is all roads lead to Bitcoin from a macro, monetary reserve asset kind of perspective. I agree with all of that, right? I don't think that the Trump token has any, huge long term effect on any of that. So maybe the way he meant it in the very short term doesn't materialize, but in principle, I agree with the sentiment of what he's saying for sure.
Okay. Well, let's go back to. I actually do want to talk to you a little bit about the macro, and I've watched your posts, and you're posting quite a bit on macro stuff, and I think I do think you're right. I think most people don't understand sort of what's going on with the dollar and our national debt and the implications of all that. Can you just give us a primer? Like, assume people don't know anything. What's going on, and how does Bitcoin fit into what's going on?
So there's a lot of moving parts here. Okay, every country in the world, well, almost every country that matters is in significant debt. Okay, U.S., China, all of Europe, et cetera, et cetera. And the problem that we have is that you get into this vicious cycle where, because you're not getting your debt burden under control, you're actually making it worse by spending more and more and more. Okay, and every country does that, and we all do it in different ways. But the bottom line is that when you are lending money to the public, which is what happens when you take on debt, you issue treasury bonds, and you're effectively borrowing that money from the public, you're basically trying to devalue your currency, and in the hopes that at the same time you can basically lower rates long term so that the cost of that debt becomes lower and lower. And at the same time, if the productivity of your population is increasing, in theory, right, you're increasing the tax base of the economy, which should help you. We call that monetizing the debt over time. Mm-hmm. But we need, each country in its own way, to a certain degree, needs a weaker currency to do that. And it also needs rates to be lower. So what happens is historically the U.S. could manage this because we had such a strong economy. Our GDP growth was good. The net labor force participation rate was very high. Now it's in decline. So the productivity rate of the country is in decline, offset by the gains of information technology, internet in the 90s, then mobile economy now, hopefully AI, and everybody's predicting a big boon. But it's kind of this lever where we have people leaving the workforce and we have gains in productivity, that are hopefully going to offset it. The problem is every country has the same problem. And so we have this race to the bottom, right? So it's not just, it's a weak dollar, it's weak. Everybody wants to make their currency weak. The United States' problem, ironically, is that we're probably in the short term, we appear right now in the short term to be losing that race to the bottom, meaning China is being much more effective at devaluing its currency, right? And you see what's happening with long-term rates in China. So in the U.S., the Fed lowered rates in September, but Treasury rates started spiking. That's not supposed to happen. Okay. And why? Why did it happen? Well, structurally years ago when they would do that, rates would fall within weeks. Now mortgage rates have been spiking. Again, that's not supposed to happen. I believe it's happening. It's not because initially people had fears of inflation that said that, they're raising rates, they're lowering rates too soon. I don't think that's what was happening. And I still don't. I think what was happening is there's now a structural belief that we've reached a tipping point where no one else is going to want to buy our worthless debt anymore. Okay, and I'm being facetious when I say worthless because everything has a price, but clearly not at the price it's at, right? You have very little. There's zero chance that China is going to buy new debt from the United States unless they can basically swap out the old debt at a higher rate, and that doesn't help anyone. Okay,
yep.
And they're afraid to dump it because they know what it'll do to their economy if they do, because it'll cause Treasury rates to spike even further. Because you're flooding the market with new debt. Yeah. And Japan has the same problem, right? They can't buy our debt anymore. We saw what happened when they tried to unwind and the basis trade and everything over the spring. That was a disaster as well. And then they quietly said, we were just kidding, right? And they undid the whole trade, right? So now we're backed into a corner where we got to basically recycle every 4 years. We got to recycle all $7 to $10 trillion of debt on our books. And if we do at the current rates, then it's going to be a disaster because the interest payments are going to balloon, right? Maybe you remember a few years ago, the people were making fun of Trump when he was saying, why aren't we issuing 100-year bonds as a government when rates are zero? And it turns out he was right. We should have been issuing 100-year bonds when rates are zero because we wouldn't have this problem now, ironically. And so because everybody just thought that the long-term channel of rates going down was going to hold forever, and it obviously wasn't true. So the only solution, and sorry for the long diatribe, is the only solution is really what we did before, which is assuming that we're not going to get our structural house in order, is for the Fed to buy our own debt. They've become the buyer of last resort, and that's what we call it, quantitative easing, but it's basically printing money to buy your own debt. Now, the U.S. can get away with that to some degree, but we saw the outcome of that post-COVID where prices spiked. There's always a price to pay for debt, always. And it's always the middle class that has to pay because that's the majority of the economy. So when you start printing money to buy your bonds, all you're doing is flooding the market with currency.
And you're just taxing the middle class.
And you're just taxing the middle class. Yeah. It's an inflation tax. That's all it is. And so now the lever is, okay, what can we do to drive inflation down, so that we can ultimately initiate quantitative easing later because we know that no one's going to want to buy these bonds unless we force the banks somehow to do it. And we saw what happened last time. And we ended up with banks that had a duration mismatch in their books. So you had First Republic and
Silicon Valley Bank.
Yep. And you have a bunch of banks right now between commercial real estate and mark-to-market of long-dated bonds are insolvent in the United States. And they're just covering it up because they don't know what else to do. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, the banks, right. So basically what you're saying is our financial system, the bulk of our banks are at this moment insolvent. They just,
I don't know if it's the bulk, but I know that it's more than a few.
Yeah.
And there's lots of banks.
Yeah.
And I haven't done the math, but it's just structurally impossible that it's not more than a few, right? Because somebody is holding those bonds.
Yeah. So it's like the fires, right? Like if the forest hasn't been cleared and all it takes is one match, and all of a sudden, whoop, these banks start getting, start collapsing and you have they turn into Terra Luna overnight, right? So it hasn't happened, but it could happen at any moment.
Yeah, correct? I mean, it happened overnight. I mean, it was one weekend in March of, I think, last year, right? When was it Elizabeth Warren that moron basically tweeting, "Oh, you should get your money out of Silicon Valley Bank," and she basically caused a run on the bank.
Yep.
And these banks all basically have a mismatch between deposits, which are on demand, and long-term holdings, which are long-term dated. And if they have to sell those securities, they're selling them at a loss.
Yeah.
Right. And at some point, the loss is too big, and that's what happens. So I think I'm not an expert in commercial real estate, but if those are variable rate loans, which I think most of them are, and they're resetting at 5 years, which is coming up, the same time that the Fed is doing this. And, we're putting a whole bunch of employees at the government level out of work because of Doge, which I'm all for, by the way.
Yeah.
But there has to be a short-term price to pay for that, just like there was in Argentina. It was very short-term, but there was a price to pay. There's a possibility that all of that is happening at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do you think? What can Trump actually do about this? How do you? Because it doesn't feel like there's a solution at all. Like, it feels like it's already happened. Like, the whip has already been cracked, and there's nothing we can do. It's just sort of coiling and going through the rest of the whip crack.
Well, what you can do is you can have 10% GDP growth with a balanced budget, right? If you basically have a robotics AI boom where you're fueling every aspect of the economy, we're rebuilding LA, which is a $500 billion investment. Right, they're talking about $100 billion. I don't think it's $100 billion. I think by the time all is said and done, because the construction costs are going to go up, material costs are going to go up. I think you're talking about $500 billion. And so when you factor all that in, if you could basically get to the point where you have 10% GDP growth, the dollar is going to spike again, but you'll be doing it from a position of strength. And now all of a sudden, all the structural weaknesses you have, you can start to deal with it. Right? I would build a sovereign wealth fund for the United States, probably including Bitcoin reserves, but that's not going to solve all of our problems in the short term. We need to be able to make investments a la Norway and Singapore and the Middle East, like what they do in Saudi. And we don't do that in this country. It's crazy, right? So there is a solution to our problems, but historically, the reason that we don't implement the solution is that the current generation has to absorb a certain amount of pain. And it's easier for a politician to just kick the proverbial can down the road than it is to absorb the short-term pain.
Wow. Well, I'm happy to hear that there is a solution, because everything that I've heard, it always sounds like there is no way out. This is inevitable. The dollar collapse is going to happen at some point, and it'll sort of creep up, and then all of a sudden it'll go vertical and Terra Luna, right?
Yeah, on the assumption that nothing changes. Absolutely, it has to. Right? Yeah. Because it's look. The other problem we have is lifespans are about to increase significantly, in my opinion. Right, and there's been a historical match between inflation rates. The 2% inflation rate is a very interesting rate. Right, I don't know if the Keynesians figured this out like in some evil scheme, but if you look at lifespans versus 2% inflation versus the value of money, it actually kind of lines up very interestingly, where you don't really realize that this inflation is eroding you like death by 1,000 cuts until you're dead. Right? and so, so
if we live longer, we're going to notice that. We're going to be
exactly.
Like, wait a minute.
What happens when everybody's living to 130? All of a sudden, this death by 1,000 cuts is going to become very acute. Right? Yeah. It's already getting acute for a lot of people, but it's it's going to become acute like just for everyone, and the jig's up. So the gig's up. So I think we have no choice for the dollar to survive, but to get our structural house in order, in my opinion. And I would love for us to start taking the pain now. But I think the majority of the public would disagree with me. So.
Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen on Monday? Do you think Trump is going to issue an executive order to create a national Bitcoin reserve? Do you think that's coming?
I don't know that he could do that. I think he's going to basically do an executive order to rescind the rules that prevent banks from holding crypto. What's that? SAB, the SEC rules, SAB 121, whatever it's called.
Yep.
That I think he can do right away. I think he can, and that will cause a huge spike, because there will be a belief that people are going to want to use all their RIAs, all their qualified custodians to start holding crypto assets, including stablecoins, by the way. right? So that opens the door for banks to start using stablecoins for things like supply chain, wires, lending, all super interesting. So that's probably the most important of all the things I expect to see, and I would be disappointed if I don't. Then I expect to see a wholesale rewriting of the SEC rules and understanding that there's a moratorium and all pending legislation that isn't just outright fraud is thrown out related to digital assets, and that they're going to work on a sandbox between the SEC and CFTC. I would be very surprised if we don't see something like that. Very clear rules of the road coming out as a result of that. And then I do think they're going to propose, maybe they try to do it via executive order. I don't know the rules of what the government can hold on its balance sheet and who gets to decide that. But I certainly believe that somebody is going to introduce legislation supported by Trump, whether it's Lummis or somebody else. I think she's already drafted it. I don't think it's been submitted yet into committee, but I think it will be in the next session. Yeah.
And how do you think stablecoins are going to go down? Do you think what's your sense on what the rulings will be there?
Well, what I'd like to see is a federal mandate, either via legislation or executive order, that prohibits a CDBC and basically opens up the floodgates for massive competition in corporate stablecoins, whether it's through banks or money transmitters or an OCC charter. I'd like to see the floodgates opened for an OCC charter that includes yield and lending. The problem we have right now is in the crypto space, the only way you can legally do yield and lending is either with a bank charter, assuming that they rescind SAB 121, or a registered investment advisor. There's no other way, right? So other than you opening up MetaMask.
So something like Athena is currently illegal?
Not if you use it. Well, Athena is a different issue. Just using any kind of yield service, third-party yield service. Forget out DeFi. We'll come back to DeFi in a second.
Yeah, okay.
Athena is not DeFi, by the way.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, so what I mean is if a third party is managing your assets and providing yield and lending, I only know of two ways to do that legally in the United States today, right? You can do the lending part with lending licenses as a money transmitter, but you can't do yield, right? So so you would need to either be a bank or what Abra does is our Abra Private is offered as a registered investment advisor. And so those are the only two ways I know. And that's crazy, right? So that means that all the startups are kind of shut out of that space. And so now DeFi, we use DeFi as a tool, right, to that our clients can deploy directly into where we're doing the work. But again, we're a registered investment advisor. The alternative is everybody learns how to use MetaMask or whatever the equivalent is for Solana and Sui, et cetera, and does DeFi deployments directly, which is untenable, right? It's not possible, right? So that's the problem. And by the way, Athena is not decentralized at all. It's a bank with an ERC20 wrapper. There's a bunch of people in the background deploying into perps manually. So people, have this thing that there's a bunch of So
Athena's the worst. Exchanges.
They're the worst of both worlds because basically, like, they've convinced the public that it's DeFi and it's not, and it's available via token, and yet the only ones who can offer it, ironically, are a bank. So it's just, I like it. I have no problem with it. It's just that their legal status is incorrect in my opinion.
Do you think algo stable should? Sorry, go ahead. You want to finish your thought?
No, that's fine.
Yeah, I was going to ask. So, do you think that algorithmic stablecoins, not necessarily the Luna design, which we now agree was bad, but there are other sort of more interesting? I guess I'm more talking about collateralized debt position.
Yeah, I'm very bullish on that concept. I think you're going to see a lot of that this cycle. Athena showed us that it can work, but they're just scratching the surface of what's possible. Super bullish on the concept.
So I'm just differentiating between collateralized debt position stables, which Athena is not, right? Like Athena is the delta neutral hedge stable coin. Right?
Yeah,
so
there's a few ways. Yeah, I understand. Right, there's a few ways to achieve that kind of stability, and some of it is. I would actually posit that what Athena is doing, it's not really 100% delta neutral because you can be in backwardation on the perps. So what Athena is doing is they're effectively using perpetual futures to short the assets that they're holding to peg the price to the dollar. on the assumption that by taking the short position, they're being paid to do that, which represents the interest.
The funding rate.
Or the funding rate, right. If that flips and longs have to, shorts have to pay longs because the market is tanking, right? Then it's no longer pegged to the dollar, and your net is negative, meaning you're basically losing.
Your funding
X
rate
percent.
is negative, yes, which can start eating into your principal.
That's right,
and actually cause your position to shrink.
Right. So calling it delta neutral is a little misleading in this case, but they have an insurance fund that they've built to deal with that. So.
Yeah, I mean, their claim is that historically, over a 3-year period, even during the worst of the markets, meaning FTX and the Luna unwind, you still would have, with their delta neutral hedge and the funding rates, yes, it would have been negative at some times, but on average, you still would have made, I think it was like 20% APY, even in the worst of markets.
Sure, but now you're talking, but that's a hedge fund. That's not a dollar. So
fair.
What you've just described is a nice fixed income hedge fund model. You didn't, So what I want to see is real algorithmic stable coins, and I think it's possible. It's just really hard, but it's coming. I think it's coming.
Okay, very interesting. What do you think of the AI coins? Have you been watching that space at all? I mean, obviously you know about Tau, but now sort of over the last month and a half or so, Virtuals has erupted, and then AI 16Z and the ELIZA OS framework has erupted, and both of those, or at least one of them, has surpassed the market cap of Tau, and the other one is about in the same neighborhood. And that's suddenly sort of thrown, oh, wow, there's more ways to do AI meets crypto other than just Tau, right? Tau was the only kid on the block for a little while. Now there's 3, right? So what do you think of that space? Is that real? Is agentic AI a thing, hooked up? Are they just meme coins with mouths? Or is this agentic AI, AI agents that pay each other in crypto actually a much more useful thing than we think?
Yeah, so I think the AI kind of, there's a few themes, right? I mean, what's happening today is just kind of all chats, bots, and related to that. And it's definitely a great kind of proof point that what am I proving by doing this? That basically you can tokenize these transactions and put a value on them, and that's interesting. Yeah. Okay, so I'm okay with that. But what I'm most excited about is the ability to start mashing up agents and basically building new services that you can only do by having agents talk to agents, and you're effectively creating these workflows. And that can only be, in my opinion, be effectively done via smart contract platforms, because you can't use centralized databases for those services to transact with each other, because then you can shut them off really easily, right? So unless they're just meant to be centralized. But if you have an agent that's out there running on the internet and it's meant to be on 24/7, right, it should be, in theory, decentralized, ideally. Anyway, I think that you're going to see a kind of first generation, what I would call mashup platforms that enable agents to talk to agents. I know Coinbase has written about this a little bit.
Yeah.
The problem is they're using Base, which, we don't have to get into it just doesn't make sense to me.
So you don't like Base. Okay. Got it.
Well, I mean, it's fine. I mean, it's a centralized database, right? So why is it better?
It's Binance Smart Chain all over again.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in Binance Smart Chain, but on the assumption that it's not decentralized and it's not going to become decentralized, what's the point? I don't really understand. Well, I guess I understand why they're doing it, and it's not really good, is my conclusion. But anyway, I do think that you're going to see the likes of Sui and Solana and these next gen massively scalable chains becoming platforms of choice for smart developers deploying agents that need to communicate with other agents. And you're going to see dedicated platforms, some of which will be token based, I would assume, that do this. And I think that's really a killer use case for crypto.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, the one thing that has caught my eye is this idea of a plethora of very highly specialized vertical agents competing with one another, but also collaborating with one another where their expertise does not overlap, and paying one another, microtransactions using wallets, right? It feels like there should be an economy here. And, if you run one of the best agents in the world, you can potentially make a lot of money. And so, it's basically this big capitalist market of agents competing and collaborating.
Yeah.
That seems
Awesome.
Really interesting to me. Yeah. So
totally agree. And it's everything from, B2B supply chain services where stablecoin based payments make sense, factoring and finance and supply chain where it's highly concentrated in China, for example, companies that make, billions of dollars in high margin interest payments, interest fees. It's just going to open up, I think, a lot of the world to a lot of competition in different types of financial services, which I'm pretty excited about. And then there's the whole consumer part, right? We think about our assistants and our travel agents and our tutors and all these other services that are teaching us Spanish today, whatever it is we're going to be buying, that are all just kind of agents running out there and figuring out what mashed up app do I need to fulfill my request.
Yeah, no, I think that world could be pretty interesting. Although I do agree right now it is pretty much meme coins with mouths, right? But getting to your point earlier, the other thing that I've seen is our actual meme coins with mouths, that also have a crypto wallet, that you can invest in because that agent is running a hedge fund, basically, like Sequoia or Y Combinator. Those are two, I believe, on the Virtual platform. And you can basically, and they're running very low dollar amounts. It's less than $1 million per wallet right now. And we don't really know whether these things can trade better than humans. They might not, right? We it just hasn't been proven one way or the other yet, but they're claiming to make a run at it and basically, and then there's another class of agent which automates DeFi for people who don't understand it, right? So getting to your point earlier, another way to sort of do that maybe is to have something like ChatGPT where you send your money into it and then you just tell it what you want it to do. And you don't even know what chains there are, what bridges, what protocols. You just sort of give it your risk profile and your goal, and it'll go and just do it. And, hopefully make the money for you that it says it can make. And you never have to understand the underlying DeFi. Have you looked at any of those things? What do you think about
we have. I mean, part of the problem is when they just put the bot out, we don't really know if there's somebody pulling strings, if it's really like, a self-propagating kind of AI bot, or I was reading that
is it really a bot or is it a puppet?
Right. That what is it? World of Truth. I mean, it was saying some things this morning. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, Truth Terminals. Yeah.
Truth Terminal. Yeah. Truth Terminal. Oh my God. I was like, I don't know if a human being would come up with that, but it's pretty out there.
Yeah, it's pretty twisted. Terminal of Truth.
Yeah, it's pretty twisted. Exactly. That's a good way to put it.
It must have trained on Reddit, as far as I could tell, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or 4chan, maybe 4chan.
Right. I avoid Reddit like it's a plague for that reason. I never look at Reddit and go away feeling good about myself. Anyway, so I don't know what to think at this point. I know what the use cases are. Yeah. I know that developers are going to think this is cool and want to spend time on it, which is great. So I don't really have a sense of how far along we are towards making that happen, but I would guess that we're pretty close. I think the pieces are all there now, right? We know how to basically train large language models on proprietary data. We know how to turn them into agents. We know how to integrate crypto to facilitate input and output of these transactions. So I think all the pieces are there to build like a scalable platform to do this. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, remains to be seen. All right, Bill, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Abra before we go, and then we'll let you go.
Yeah, so Abra is a crypto bank, and the consumer-facing piece of that is our registered investment advisor. We basically offer trade, earn, and borrow, so the ability to buy crypto, the ability to earn yield, dollar stablecoins, staking, yield on Bitcoin. Clients get their own vault. So these are segregated accounts. We call them SMAs, which is the industry term, separately managed accounts. There's no commingling of assets. Yield is generated via DeFi. Lending is done via DeFi. And so there's no counterparty risk to Abra, which is really cool. Or I should say no counterparty risk to the client to Abra, which is really cool. And I think we're one of the largest borrowers, lenders in the space now, and growing. And so we operate in the US and like 50 countries. And so that's our both our consumer as well as corporate arm. We have an Abra Treasury product, which basically does the same thing, but for corporates, right? So you can replicate the MicroStrategy playbook. You can borrow against crypto holdings. And then we have our prime brokerage, which mostly services other crypto native businesses, trading, lending, options, derivatives. And that's been a big, fast growing business for us for some time.
Well, Bill, congratulations on all your success. And one last thing, where can people find you online, your Twitter and all your X handle?
I'm Bill Barr X on Twitter, which I think you see on the screen there.
Yep.
And I'm pretty active there. I come and go in spurts. I'm pretty busy with my day job, but I try to be a little engaging, especially we have a lot of clients on there. But I'm usually active on Twitter, Bill Barr X, Bill Barr on Instagram. Pretty much it. And I link to Abra Global pretty regularly, so you'll find Abra on abra.com, and all the things I described on Abra you can find on Abra's website as well.
Super, super cool. Well, Bill, thank you once again for responding so quickly and jumping on the chat with me. This has been Ad Treat. We'll see you all next time.